them and has become what is called a stimulating factor for their specific manifestations, which also became proper only to three brain beings of the planet Earth. And the totality of these manifestations among the beings of the large community was this time called their Bolshevism. I will explain to you later about this same particular functioning of their common presences. I touched upon this question in this place only to give you a representation of the already particularly abnormal conditions of being existence, among which my activities among the beings of this large community flowed at this period during this sojourn of mine in their chief place of existence, St. Petersburg. Even before my arrival in this city, I had had in view to actualize one of my intentions, for the fulfillment of which everything that was necessary had been already prepared by me. The point is that already long before this, I had intended to set up in one or other of their great inhabited spots a something of the kind of what they call a chemical laboratory, in which I intended, by means previously decided on beforehand, to proceed with special experiments on several deeply concealed aspects of their ever the same strange psyche. And so, my boy, when I had stayed in this city and when I discovered that almost half my time there might be free, I decided to make use of the chance of being temporarily half occupied and set about the actualization of this intention of mine. From the information I obtained, I learned that in order to set up such a laboratory there, it was obligatorily required, first of all, to have a permit from the local power-possessing beings, and that is why I quickly began to take steps to get this permit. The first steps I took showed me that on account of the laws which had been so long before fixed in the process of existence of this community, a permit to have the right to have one's own chemical laboratory had to be issued there by a certain what is called department of one of their what are called ministries. That is why I betook myself to that same department. But it turned out that although the staff of this department acknowledged that it was their obligation to issue that kind of permit, yet they themselves did not know how it had to be done. And they did not know this, as I later understood, simply because no one had ever applied to them for this permit. And on this account, these unfortunate beings had not acquired the customary for them what is called automatic habit for the manifestation of such a being duty as theirs of this kind. Here it must in general be noticed that there during the last centuries almost every being manifestation for the fulfillment of their being duty in the presences of those beings who become power-possessing is already actualized thanks exclusively only to the functioning of the data which are formed in them from manifold automatic repetitions of the same thing. As regards the power-possessing beings of this community, the crystallization of these peculiar automatic being data at this period of the flow of time proceeded in them much more intensely than anywhere else, and was expressed so sharply that sometimes it even seemed as if there were completely absent in them in general all data whatsoever for the immediate bringing forth of being impulses proper in general to beings. This crystallization proceeded in them, as I later elucidated, in consequence of the action of the cosmic law Solunensis, which cosmic law I some time ago mentioned to you. But as to what I said, namely that nobody applied for a permit to the staff of the mentioned department, this by no means happened because none of the inhabitants to this chief place of existence needed a chemical laboratory. No. On the contrary, Never had there been in that town so many similar chemical laboratories as at this very period of the flow of time, and doubtless all the owners of the necessary permits had procured them from somewhere or other in some or other way. They could not help having them. It was just for this that there existed in this chief place of their existence, as in general there exists in all large and small communities in times of peace, a particular, as they say, administrative body, which comprises the basic hope of a complete bliss for power possessors, which they themselves call the gendarmerie, or police. One of the chief obligations of the representatives of which is to see that everyone, for every kind of enterprise there, should have a corresponding permit. And indeed, it must not be supposed that the what are called lynx-eyed beings, representatives of the said basic hope of a complete bliss for power possessors, would let anything slip by, and allow anywhere any laboratory whatever without the corresponding permit from the power possessors. A basic reason for this seeming contradiction was something quite different. It is necessary to tell you that there already in this community the attitude towards the laws and regulations fixed in the past by beings for normal, according to their understanding, mutual relationship, and in general for ordinary existence, began to become such that only those of the ordinary beings could obtain and profit by everything to which they had objective right, who knew how to act to the contrary, i.e., against laws and regulations existing there. Of these private laboratories, such as I wished to set up, not one, but thousands could there be had. It was merely necessary to know, first of all, what abnormal goings and comings were the practice for procuring the permits for these laboratories, and then to act in accordance with these abnormalities. I, however, on account of the short time I had stayed there, had not yet had time to make clear for myself all the subtleties of the ordinary being existence which had begun in this community, as I said, to become particularly abnormal. That is why, when I set out to take steps to get the permit I required, there began for me those endless vexations, or, as they themselves say in such cases, the idiotic dilly-dallyings, which were also fixed, not long before, in the process of their being existence. And in addition, all this turned out in the end to be quite without result and unnecessary. It began with this. When I had reached the aforesaid department, and addressed myself to the staff there, they all began to eye each other perplexedly, and to whisper together, and several of them rummaged through fat tomes in the hope, obviously, of finding some written rule about the issuing of these permits. Finally, the oldest of them came toward me and importantly required from me that I should first of all bring him from a certain other department certain information concerning my personal, as they express it, loyalty. It was from just this that my further endless perambulations began, from one department to another, from, as they say, one administration to another, from one official specialist to another, and so on without end. Thus the business continued until, from the so-called